Porsche thought they were invincible. For decades, they were right. No rival could match their legacy. No badge came close to the crown. But then came a car, built in silence, forged not for comfort, but revenge. At half the price, it didn't just keep up. It outran the king. Lap after lap, it wasn't a fluke. It was a warning shot. And Porsche knew, for the first time in decades, they were in trouble. The car that made Porsche regret everything. Before the world fell in love with supercars that screamed for attention, there was one name whispered with reverence: Porsche. It wasn't just a brand, it was a bloodline. From the moment the first 911 roared to life in 1964, the world knew this wasn't just engineering. It was evolution on wheels. For decades, Porsche didn't chase trends, it created them. On tracks, it broke records. On streets, it broke necks. Wealth wore it like a badge. Racers treated it like a weapon. It wasn't the fastest car in every race, but it was always the one to beat. Ferrari had the drama. Lamborghini had the flash. But Porsche? Porsche had precision. Cold, calculated, deadly. And with every new model, it didn't reinvent itself. It refined itself. Generations of drivers were raised to believe that if you wanted the perfect blend of luxury, speed, and pedigree, you drove a Porsche. No noise, no bragging, just pure dominance. It sat on the throne for decades, untouchable, unshaken. But every king eventually hears footsteps, and this one was getting closer. It didn't come with legacy. It didn't come with elegance. It came with something far more dangerous intent. From the factories of Japan, in a quiet corner of Nissan's engineering division, a monster was being forged. Not designed to impress, designed to disrupt. They called it the GT-R, but to those who knew, it was Godzilla. No celebrity launch, no champagne unveil, just numbers brutal, cold, undeniable numbers. It didn't whisper class, it growled power. Journalists laughed. A Nissan against a Porsche? Forums mocked it. Purists rolled their eyes. But the engineers didn't flinch. They weren't building for the critics. They were building for revenge. For every time Japanese innovation had been overlooked, for every time European tradition had silenced performance with price tags, for every car enthusiast who was told, "You can't beat a Porsche unless you buy one," this wasn't just a car. It was a challenge wrapped in carbon, cooled by vengeance, and aimed directly at the throne. No one saw it coming, until they looked in their rear view and saw it wasn't there, because it had already passed them. The first shot wasn't fired on a racetrack. It was fired on a spreadsheet. 0 to 60 in under 3 seconds. Quarter mile in 11 flat. Top speed north of 190. And the price? Less than half of a 911 turbo. The automotive world blinked. On paper, the GT-R wasn't a rival, it was a revelation. Twin-turbo V6, all-wheel drive. A launch control system that felt illegal. It didn't just accelerate, it vanished. Then came Nürburgring, Germany's sacred proving ground, where lap times turn into legacies. Porsche had ruled here for years until the GT-R carved its initials into the asphalt. A time so fast, it didn't just break expectations, it broke egos. Critics scrambled. Was the track wet? Were the tires modified? Porsche questioned it. Nissan smiled. The numbers didn't lie, but pride did. And while Porsche whispered about tradition, the GT-R screamed with data. Side-by-side drag races, lap battles, head-to-heads on YouTube and magazines. Again and again, the GT-R kept winning. It didn't win with emotion. It won with execution. And for the first time, the crown didn't feel so secure, because this wasn't a fairy tale anymore. It was a calculation, and the math didn't favor the king. Porsche never showed fear, but behind closed doors, the silence was loud. Engineers reran simulations. Marketing teams crafted new narratives. Meetings were held where the word Nissan was spoken with gritted teeth. This wasn't supposed to happen. How could a company known for family sedans suddenly shake the very roots of Stuttgart's empire? Inside the ivory walls of Porsche's legacy, questions echoed. Was the 911 slipping? Were they relying too much on history and not enough on evolution? They didn't answer publicly. But the changes spoke louder than any press release. New variants of the 911 started arriving faster. More horsepower, sharper handling, Lighter frames, the GT2, the Turbo S special editions with something to prove. Because now, every launch wasn't just about leading, it was about defending. Magazines that once celebrated Porsche without question now whispered doubt. Track comparisons that used to be formalities became firestorm. And loyalists, the lifelong Porsche faithful, began looking sideways at a car they once mocked. In Tokyo, no one gloated. The GT-R team didn't host parades. They just watched as the Titan they challenged started shifting its feet. Because when a giant stumbles even slightly, the world doesn't forget. And Porsche, for the first time in decades, had blinked. This wasn't just about lap times anymore. It was about perception, and Porsche was losing it. The badge that once meant perfection now had an asterisk. Car forums erupted. Why pay double for a Porsche when a Nissan can beat its stock? Young enthusiasts, once dreamers of German keys, now had their sights set east. The GT-R wasn't built for beauty. It wasn't designed to charm. It was built to destroy, and people respected it for that. Porsche had always commanded attention. The GT-R earned fear. At car meets, side-by-side revs felt like Showdown. On YouTube, drag race thumbnails pitted legacy against logic. Dealerships started hearing the unthinkable. Do you have anything faster than a GT-R? The myth of Porsche wasn't broken by scandal. It was fractured by data. And the worst part? The GT-R wasn't trying to replace Porsche. It didn't want the throne. It just wanted to prove the throne was vulnerable. And that idea that Porsche could be beat spread like wildfire through a generation of drivers who no longer cared about pedigree. They cared about power. And for Porsche, the damage was already done. The GT-R didn't rule forever. Time caught up. Emissions cracked down. Regulations tightened like nooses. And just like that, Godzilla began to fade. Porsche survived. It evolved. Hybrid tech, electric dreams, digital dashboards. It adapted to the new world because it had to. But something inside the walls of Porsche had changed. A ghost lingered. Every new 911 release was faster, sharper, louder, like it had something to prove. Like it was still trying to outrun a shadow from Japan. Because the GT-R didn't just beat Porsche on the track. It embarrassed them in the one place they thought was untouchable: respect. Ask any true car enthusiast today, and they'll tell you, the GT-R R35 changed the game. It punched up and landed clean. It forced every legacy brand to wake up, to stop selling history and start delivering performance. No victory parade, no final roar, just a silent, seismic shift in the world of cars. And somewhere deep inside Porsche's vaults, where pride and perfection are stored like sacred relics, lies a chapter they never talk about. But they remember it, because for a few brutal years, Porsche didn't drive the future. It chased it. Legends aren't always born from bloodlines. Sometimes, they crash the gates, uninvited, unwanted, unforgettable. The Porsche versus GT-R saga wasn't just a battle of machines, it was a war of mindsets. Tradition versus disruption, elegance versus aggression, legacy versus raw, unfiltered ambition. And for a moment, ambition won. So the next time you hear a turbo spool at a red light, or see a flash of taillights disappearing into the night, ask yourself, is it about the brand on the badge or the fire under the hood? Because sometimes, the car that changed everything didn't come to be admired. It came to make you question everything you thought you knew. Subscribe if you love the truth beneath the hood, like if this shook your perspective. And drop a comment below, Porsche or GT-R? Who really owned the streets?